Dear friends, today we will talk about a topic that in one way or another touches us all. We will talk about what happens with the soul of a loved one in the first days after leaving this world. I know how difficult it is to lose those we love. Each of us has asked, where is now the soul of our loved one? What does it feel? How can we help it in this important period of transition? Understanding what happens with the soul during the first 9 days after departure can bring comfort not only to us who remain here, but also help those who begin their journey toward the beyond. Because the soul of a person does not disappear at the moment of death, it begins a new journey, and the first 9 days of that path are especially important. In ancient times, people treated this period with special care and attention. This knowledge was passed down from generation to generation in different cultures and religions, and although each tradition describes this process differently, it is surprising how much they have in common. Today I will share with you what happens with the soul at each stage of this important transition and how we can help our loved ones during this period. Why are the 9 days considered a special period for the soul? During this time, a gradual separation takes place between the subtle energetic envelope and the material world. Just as a newborn goes through specific stages of development in the first days of life, the soul also passes through important phases of transformation after physical death. This period can be compared to awakening from a deep sleep. The soul needs time to recognize its new state and begin to get used to it. In the first 9 days, it is still closely connected to the physical world, to the places and people that were important during its life. It is a moment when the barrier between worlds becomes especially thin. It is interesting that the number 9 appears in the traditions of different peoples completely independently of one another. In Orthodoxy, the remembrance of the 9th day is associated with the 9 angelic choirs that help the soul on its journey. In Buddhism, this period is called Bardo, an intermediate state in which the soul gradually leaves its earthly ties. Even in ancient Slavic beliefs, the 9 days were considered a time when the soul said goodbye to the earthly world and prepared for its transition to the spiritual world. During these 9 days, the soul must travel an important path, from total connection with the physical world to being ready to advance in its spiritual development. The first 3 days after physical death are the most important and probably the most difficult for the soul. At the moment of death, the soul does not immediately understand what has happened. It finds itself in a state similar to confusion, like a person who suddenly wakes up in an unknown place. The soul tries to understand what is happening and get used to its new condition. In the first hours, the soul often remains near the body. It can see everything happening around it, the relatives who weep, the doctors if death occurred in a hospital, or the rescuers if it was an accident. The soul hears conversations, feels the emotions of those around it, but it can no longer physically interact with our world. This can cause it restlessness and anxiety. On the second day, the soul begins to realize that something irreversible has occurred. It may visit places it frequented in life and be with its loved ones. At this moment, the soul especially needs the prayers and kind words of its relatives. The serenity of those close, their bright memories, and their love help the soul to pass more easily through this period of transition. On the third day, a deeper understanding arrives. The soul begins to adapt to its new condition and to understand that there is no return to its former life. In this period, it is especially important that the relatives do not let themselves be carried away by despair, nor express their pain excessively. Strong negative emotions can hold the soul near the earthly plane and make its progress more difficult. Many people who have lived near-death experiences describe precisely these first moments: a feeling of lightness, the ability to see what is happening from the outside, the impossibility of interacting with the physical world. Their experiences help us better understand what happens with the soul in the first days after death. From the fourth to the sixth day, the soul begins its astonishing journey, during which a deep reevaluation of the life lived takes place. It is a moment in which all events, encounters, and important actions pass before its inner sight, as if reviewing the book of its life. The soul not only sees the events, but also their true meaning and their impact on other people. During this period, the soul may encounter those who departed before, relatives, friends, spiritual guides. These encounters bring comfort and help gradually release ties to the physical world. The souls of loved ones who have already passed become guides, helping to understand and accept the new state. That is why people before dying often say they see their deceased relatives coming to meet them. On the fifth day, a surprising transformation in perception occurs. The soul begins to see the world in a completely different way. Earthly problems and concerns that seem so important in life move to the background. A deeper understanding of spiritual laws and of the connections among all living things emerges. The soul begins to realize the unity of all existence and its role within that unity. By the sixth day, the soul acquires a new understanding of itself. It no longer identifies with the physical body, nor with the earthly roles it played in life. The awareness arises of being an eternal spiritual essence, for which life in the earth was only another stage of its development. This important understanding helps the soul to continue its journey. At this moment, the soul may still feel an emotional connection with its loved ones, but this connection becomes more subtle and spiritual. The soul learns to interact with the world in a new way, through the energy of love and light, instead of physical presence. The last 3 days of this important 9-day period are a time of closure of earthly matters and preparation for the next stage of the soul's existence.
On the seventh day, the soul gains a special clarity and serenity. It no longer seeks to return to its previous life, but it can still observe what happens in the material world. During this time, the soul begins to notice how the lives of its loved ones gradually reorganize, how they learn to move forward while keeping a bright memory in their hearts. On the eighth day, an important process takes place. The soul releases the last ties that connected it to the material world. It no longer feels the need to remain in familiar places or near its loved ones. Now the soul understands that it can maintain the bond with them through prayer, radiant memories, and good deeds performed in its memory. It is like a bird preparing to leave the nest. It knows the time has come to begin a new path. By the 9th day, the soul is fully prepared to transition to the next level of existence. It is no longer bound to a specific place or time, but exists in another dimension where earthly laws no longer affect it. The soul acquires a new vision of reality, an expanded and deepened perception of the universe. The last link to the physical world becomes as delicate as a thread of silk, but it does not break completely, since love and memories can overcome any boundary. During these last days, it is especially important that loved ones keep in their hearts a bright image of the departed person. Remember the happy moments shared with them and perform good deeds in their memory. This helps the soul to carry out its transition to a new stage of existence with greater ease and serenity. How can we help the soul of a loved one during these important 9 days? The most important thing is to maintain inner calm and positive thoughts. In moments of grief, this may seem almost impossible, but our emotional state deeply influences the soul, since excessive pain and despair can keep it tied near the earthly plane, creating additional difficulties. Prayer is one of the most effective means to help the soul. It does not matter whether you pray according to the canons of a specific religion or simply speak to higher forces in your own words. A sincere prayer that comes from the heart will always be heard. During these days, it is helpful to request a memorial service in a church or to hold a meditation with good wishes for the departed soul. It is important to maintain a calm and serene atmosphere at home. A candle can be lit, a photo of the loved one placed along with some of their favorite belongings. A kind word spoken about the departed, bright memories of happy moments shared, gratitude for all the good they did in life. All this helps the soul on its journey. It is especially helpful to carry out good deeds in memory of the departed person. This could be helping those in need, caring for nature or animals, any act that brings light and kindness into the world. We find remarkable testimonies about what happens after death in the accounts of people who have experienced clinical death. Many describe similar experiences: a feeling of peace and lightness, the ability to see their body from outside, encounters with deceased loved ones. An intensive care physician in the city of Tver told of a patient who, after returning to life, described in detail everything that happened in the operating room while she was unconscious. In various cultures, we find surprisingly similar descriptions of the experience after death. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, in the Tibetan Bardo Todal, and in Slavic legends, all speak of the gradual transition of the soul to the other world. Contemporary researchers who study near-death experiences have collected thousands of testimonies that confirm this ancient knowledge. Interestingly, even people far from religion or spiritual practices, after a clinical death experience, tell of encounters with deceased relatives, a feeling of absolute love and understanding, and a new perception of life and death. Often these experiences are so profound that they completely transform the person's worldview and their attitude towards life and death. Dear friends, remember that the death of a loved one is not the end, but only a transition to a new stage of the soul's existence. Our grief is understandable and natural, but we must not allow it to completely take over our hearts. The soul of our loved one continues its journey, and our bright thoughts, prayers, and good deeds help them along this path. Each soul passes through this important 9-day period in its own unique way, but one thing does not change. The love and support of its loved ones make this transition easier. Our loved ones do not disappear without a trace. They continue living in our hearts, in our memories, and in the deeds they carried out in life. And although physically we can no longer embrace them or speak with them, the spiritual bond between souls never breaks. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones. Value every moment of togetherness. And if the time comes to say goodbye, remember their love. Your bright thoughts and prayers will be the light that guides the soul of your loved one on their new path. May faith always live in your heart that one day all souls will be reunited in that wonderful world where there are no farewells and no separations. Friends, thank you for being with me today and for joining me in approaching this important and profound subject.